This is TOS Television, your digital first Pan-African network. I'm Adesu Alsi, and this is Africa Now. We begin with United Nations input on insecurity matters. United Nations official warned on Friday that Mozambicans uprooted by a jihadist insurgency have the potential to become radicalized themselves if they lack basic essentials and root causes of the conflict are not addressed. In the past year, Islamic State-linked militants have escalated attacks in Mozambique's northernmost province, Cabo Delgado, murdering villagers, fighting in the army, and seizing towns. Beheadings have been a hallmark of attacks. The number of people fleeing their homes swelled from 70,000 to about 700,000 over the last year, said Raouf Mazur, the UN Refugee Agency's Assistant High Commissioner for Operations. Many initially made their way south to the well-protected provincial capital of Pemba to live, often in cramped conditions with host families. The government has started moving people to resettlement sites outside the city. Gillian Triggs, the UN Refugee Agency's Assistant High Commissioner for Protection, told reporters at a briefing alongside Mazau. Following a coup, he said more funding and planning was needed to cover food, medicine, and education. Though there are reports of foreign fighters in the insurgency, the conflict is rooted in local issues from poverty and unemployment to perceived corruption and religious discrimination, Mazur said. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees is warning about an alarming increase in the number of attacks by an armed group on civilians in northeastern parts of the Democratic Republic of Congo. This was made known by UNHCR spokesperson Baba Balok at a press briefing in Geneva on Friday. Since January, attacks said to be carried out by the armed groups, allied democratic forces have killed nearly 200 people, injured dozens of others, and displaced an estimated 40,000 people in DRC's Beni territory in North Kivu province, as well as nearby villages in Ituri province. In less than 3 months, the ADF has alleged raided 25 villages, set fire to dozens of houses, and kidnapped over 70 people. This is in addition to the 465 Congolese killed in attacks attributed to the ADF during 2020. Attacks and widespread human rights violations also continue in other parts of North Kivu province. The main reasons for these attacks are reported to include retaliation by armed groups against military operations, their search for food and medicine, and accusations against communities of sharing information on ADF positions, said the agency. Still on insecurity, in Libya, the Prime Minister of Libya's new unity government, Abdul Hamid Beba, said on Friday he had instructed the Attorney General to open an investigation into the discovery of bodies in Benghazi. Local media reports say that a dozen bodies of people shot dead were discovered on Thursday in the eastern city that is the stronghold of Khalifa Haftar's Libyan National Army, whose assault on the capital, Tripoli, was repulsed last year. They endured a decade of chaos and violence since the NATO-backed uprising that toppled Muammar Gaddafi as armed groups gained control over city districts, leading to an epidemic. Prime Minister Abdul Mahid Bebe, who was selected through a United Nations-led process and took office this week, tweeted that he gave direct instructions to the Interior Minister and requested the Attorney General to open an investigation in Benghazi. The security headquarters, which includes both police and military units under LNA control, initially denied any bodies had been found, but said later on Friday that it would issue a statement on the matter. To COVID-19, the head of the World Health Organization, Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, sent his congratulations to Tanzania's newly inaugurated president, saying he hopes they can work together to tackle coronavirus in Tanzania. He tweeted, Samia Suluhu Hassan has just been sworn in as the East African nation's new leader, 2 days after the death of President John Magufuli. Tanzania has not published details of its coronavirus cases since May, and the government has refused to purchase vaccines despite a plea from the WHO that Tanzanians be inoculated. The late president gained international notoriety in the last year for his handling of the coronavirus pandemic. Instead, Magufuli called for prayers and herbal-infused steam therapy to counter the virus. He also matched the efficacy. And in politics, the United States Embassy in Mogadishu, in a statement on its website on Friday, said Washington urges President Farmajo and Somalia's national leadership to act now to resolve the political impasse that threatens Somalia's future and fine agreement with federal member state leaders to allow the conduct of parliamentary and presidential elections immediately. Somalia missed the deadline to hold an election by February 8, when President Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed, better known by his nickname Farmajo, was due to step down, sparking a constitutional crisis in the already fragile state. A coalition of opposition candidates now considers the president to be illegitimate and wants him to resign. The political gridlock of the past year has resulted in a disappointing lack of progress in fighting al-Shabaab and improving security, advancing economic development after achieving the first degree of debt relief, and effectively addressing the food insecurity and natural disasters that threatened far too many of Somalia's people, it added. Quickly resolving the issue, it is critical to Somalia's future. It is the responsibility that the duty of national and regional leaders be put aside the search for political advantage and instead act in the interest of the people of Somalia, who deserve the best from their leaders. This is your Digital First Pan-African Network, TOS Television Network. You're watching Africa Now. Updates on Somalia's elections and more after the break. Do stay tuned. Welcome back. Still on politics. On Friday, thousands protested in Algiers to demand press freedom and judicial independence as the Hirak pro-democracy movement keeps up its weekly demonstrations of demanding a sweeping overhaul of a ruling system in place since Algeria's independence from France in 1962 and an independent judiciary despite a ban on gathering due to the coronavirus pandemic. The Hirak protest movement was sparked in February 2019 over then-President Abdelaziz Bouteflika's bid for a fifth term in office. Demonstrators also criticized President Abdelmadjid Tebbounne's decision to call early elections in June 12 in an attempt to assuage the country's political and economic crisis. Several journalists were assaulted at the demonstration a week earlier, and Algerian authorities have threatened to permanently withdraw an international broadcaster media accreditation. Press freedom watchdog Reporters Without Borders ranked Algeria's 146 out of 180 countries and territories in its 2020 World Press Freedom Index. Away from political matters, at least 25 people were killed when a large truck smashed into 3 vehicles on the roads to the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo city, Goma, on Friday, due to a brake failure system, the local mayor said. The provincial death toll is 25 people killed at the scene, while those injured had been taken to hospital, the mayor added. The accident occurred in the early evening of a section of steep road, he said. Deadly traffic accidents are common in Congo, a vast country the size of continental Western Europe. The National Road Safety Commission said there were 1,895 road accidents in North Kivu alone in 2019, in which 261 people were killed. In France, anti-racism campaigners have defaced a street sign in the capital named after Thomas Burgoud, a former military commander and the first colonial governor of Algeria. Members of the group SOS Racism decided that Avenue Burgoud in Paris should be renamed and put up a sign in its place reading Avenue of the Butcher Burgoud in the explanation below, instead of saying he was a French marshal and giving his dates 1784 to 1849. It labels him a war criminal and the executioner of Algeria's conquest, according to a photo the group tweeted. A French newspaper says a sign was added next to it saying Scorched Earth Avenue. There are references to Marshal Burgoud's military tactics during his conquest of the North African nation in 1830. A scorched earth policy, including the burning of all crops and demolition of homes of Algerians. Another technique his troop used was called smoking, when those who had taken refuge in caves were suffocated with smoke. Activists in France have been urging the authorities to rename public areas named after controversial figures involved in the slave trade. Since coming to power, France's President Emmanuel Macron has been trying to repair relations with Algeria, especially concerning a bitter war of independence. To business, Kenyan Treasury officials are basing their debt restructuring plan on the expectation of a bounce back from the effects of COVID-19 on tourism and commodity export. Although the budget deficit is projected to widen to 8.7% of GDP, the government will have to borrow more. Government debt is expected to exceed 66% of GDP and debt servicing to take up 27% of state revenue over the next 3 years. The Treasury will raise at least 124 billion Kenya shilling by June 2022 on the euro bond market. This move is part of a planned debt restructuring of around 350 billion Kenya shillings of principal repayment. The size of the euro bond will depend on how much cash the government can raise from the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, and the African Development Bank. The government is also reported to have secured the deferment of some $600 million in service payments of public and private debt until the end of June. The government debt burden and contingent liabilities via state companies is set to rise over the next year. And that is it on Africa Now. For more updates, visit our website at www.tostvnetwork.com. Do also follow and like our social media handles on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. Do stay with us and enjoy more programs on TOS Television Network. I am Adesu Sui. Thank you for watching.